What if the biggest concert of the year filled everyone's coffers except the city that hosted it? And what if the Leafs' all-time goals record fell on the same night a rookie stole the Raptors' spotlight? Let's dive in. Quick Toronto weather. About 2 degrees Celsius with no rain. Toronto's big-ticket Taylor Swift Eras Tour stock turned into a fiscal reality check for City Hall. While Ottawa took in about $17 million and Queen's Park collected roughly $14 million, Toronto itself netted just $8 million and spent nearly $4 million to host. Most of the city's revenue came from the municipal accommodation tax on hotels, but the split highlights a stubborn problem. Cities bear the costs of policing, transit, and cleanup for mega events, while senior governments capture the bulk of the tax windfall. Expect this to fuel calls for new revenue tools or event cost sharing, especially as Toronto courts more marquee shows. On the ice, Austin Matthews just leveled up a franchise. In a 4-1 win over the Florida Panthers, he became the Maple Leafs' all-time leader in goals, passing Matt Sundin. Matthew Knees chipped in with a goal and a slick helper on the record setter. Bobby McMahon sealed it with an empty netter. And Joseph Woll only lost the shutout late to Carter Verhaeghe. That's 6 straight wins at Scotiabank Arena, and since the Christmas break, Matthews has 7 goals and 11 points in 5 games. One odd subplot: Brad Marchand didn't play the third after a hit from McMahon, and later kept stirring the pot off the ice. More on him in a second. Speaking of the blue line, rumors are swirling that 2 defensemen are available and the Leafs are poking around. One speculative package centers on prospect Easton Cowan. Here's the question teams will ask: does Cowan headline enough value to land a top 4 defender? Or does Toronto need to add a first-rounder or an NHL-ready piece to get it done? The need is obvious: shore up the back end without robbing the forward depth that's driving this win streak. And yes, Brad Marchand is doing Brad Marchand things. He claimed Leafs fans ran Mitch Marner out of town, and said he thought he might sign in Toronto this past summer before choosing Florida, adding that the Leafs compete the right way now. There were even rumblings Toronto kicked tires on acquiring him from Boston before he landed with the Panthers. Also, in a bit of hockey history, Florida donated a 2025 Stanley Cup ring to the Hockey Hall of Fame. Whether you love Marchand or love to hate him, he keeps inserting himself into the Leafs narrative, and the rivalry theater isn't going away. To international ice, a quick look ahead to 2026. Team USA is eyeing tweaks from their 4 nations lineup, mixing in more veteran experience around their young core to close the gap with Canada. Team Canada, meanwhile, looks set to roll a very familiar, very deep group built on that tournament's chemistry. If USA balances pace with playoff-tested pieces, we could get a true classic in Italy. On the hardwood, the Raptors just completed a season sweep of the Hawks, 118-100, and it was the night of Colin Murray boils. Starting for the injured Jakob Poeltl, the rookie bullied his way to 17 points, 7 boards, 7 assists, and a handful of winning, physical plays on both ends. Scotty Barnes notched an 18-10 double-double. Brandon Ingram and several others hit double figures, and despite too many turnovers, the ball movement and defense held firm. Yes, Trae Young was out with a quad contusion, but a sweep is a sweep, and the Raptors showed depth. Now the tricky part: the Hornets. Despite Charlotte's decade-long playoff drought, they've taken 2 of 3 from Toronto this season. The line favors Toronto by 2, total at 230.5, but the matchup quirks matter. Miles Bridges has feasted in the series at 24 a game. LaMelo Ball is at 15 and could be trade bait before the deadline. And Charlotte's top pick, Rookie of the Year candidate Con Knuppel, has injected shot-making. The Raptors haven't dropped a season series to the Hornets since 2019, and Emmanuel Quickley's 22.7 per game in the matchup is a good sign. But they'll need the same connected defense and physical edge we just saw in Atlanta to flip this year's script in Charlotte. Tennis Canada wrapped a roller coaster United Cup. Strong early showings from Felix Auger-Aliassime and Victoria Mboko, but bowed out in the group stage. The quick turn now is to the Davis Cup qualifiers first round in early 2026 with a refreshed roster. And a note on a stalwart. Vasek Pospisil reflected on an 18-year career and offered what sounded like closing remarks to Canadian fans. If this is the curtain call, what a run. Davis Cup heroics, top 25 peak, and a legacy of leadership in Canadian tennis. A national policy story to watch. The U.S. has widened its visa bond program, nearly tripling the number of countries, now 38, whose citizens may be required to post bonds up to $15,000 when applying for visas. The list is heavily weighted toward African nations, with some in Latin America and Asia. U.S. officials say bonds deter overstays by adding financial accountability, alongside steps like in-person interviews and social media and travel history disclosures. Critics argue the cost will price out students, families, and legitimate visitors, effectively shutting the door on many low- and middle-income applicants. For Canadians with relatives in affected countries, plan for longer timelines and higher hurdles. One more high-profile cross-border headline is circulating online. Claims that the U.S. has arrested Canadian figure Mark Carney in a law enforcement raid tied to drug trafficking charges, with comparisons to cases against other foreign leaders and references to fentanyl deaths. We have not seen independent, authoritative confirmation of an arrest or indictments from official sources in either country. Until there's verifiable documentation from courts or governments, treat this as unverified and developing. We'll update if credible records emerge. Before we go, a quick Leafs thought experiment. If Toronto really wants a difference-making defender, what's the appetite to move a top prospect like Cowan versus protecting the pipeline and sacrificing future picks? With Matthews blazing and the home streak alive, the front office's balancing act might define the spring. And a quick weather reset for your afternoon plans, about 2 degrees Celsius with no rain. That's it for today. If you enjoyed the show, share it with a friend who still calls him Austin Matthews franchise leader. We'll be back tomorrow.